These seats behind me will soon be filled as the Grimsby Author Series kicks off its 2018 fall season by welcoming Wayne Grady and Nathan Ripley to town. The Source caught up with the two authors at the Casablanca Winery Inn as they read from their latest works and met their fans. Nathan, you would call Find You in the Dark a psychological thriller. Why would you call it that?
Because it spends as much time inside of its character's head as it does in the story. I'm writing a story set in the serial killer world, but I'm not interested in gore at all. I really wanted to get into the mind of someone who is super fascinated with true crime in the way a lot of us are, but with a sinister twist.
The novel gets into the minds not only of Martin Rees, the protagonist, who is obsessed with serial killers, but also, I think, into the minds of Sandra Whitall, the police detective who is after him.
Yeah, that's right. I wanted to give Martin a counterpoint who was someone with a similarly troubled background, but who had a real focus on justice done her own way. She's not a sort of Mel Gibson lethal weapon style crazy cop, but she is a police officer with her own sense of justice, and she's very fixated on Martin.
Is it hard to write about a cop without getting into those TV cop cliches?
It definitely is. You have to address them, and also so many cops learned how to be a cop in part from watching those TV shows like Hill Street Blues, like NYPD Blue. So you really have to be aware of that as well. It's a complicated thing.
Find You in the Dark is the debut thriller by Toronto author Nathan Ripley. It follows a Seattle man who is obsessed with serial killers. You've written under your real name some other types of books. Why the thriller and why the pen name?
I always wanted to have two different split careers. Nathan Ripley, my name's Ben Ruthven, by the way. It's a transparent pseudonym, but when I was 14, I decided, I want to write thrilling fiction as well as whatever else I want. So I thought two careers was the only way I could do that, and that's what I've done.
Is there more fun in writing a thriller like this?
I'll tell you this much, it's at least much faster. Somehow the prose comes out faster, and because I actually have contracts and deadlines, you can be sure that the drafting process is a lot quicker, because it has to be.
2013 Scotiabank Giller Prize nominee Wayne Grady read from his latest novel, Up from Freedom, which deals with slavery and guilt.
It really is a novel about guilt, and individual guilt in Moody's case, and also collective guilt in the case of the United States, who had embraced slavery and was actually became a great nation on the back of slavery. And the question I ask in the novel, one of the questions I ask is, Virgil Moody thinks of himself as a good man. He knows he's done a couple of things wrong, but he's essentially a good man. And what I ask in there is, how do you be a good man in an evil system? How do you be an anti-slave? How do you be effective as an anti-slave person in a country that has slavery? Can you? And can an individual be forgiven for being part of that system, and can the system be forgiven? And I don't have an answer to that. I don't think it's fiction's job to answer those questions, but I think it needs to be raised.
Can you take me back to that moment when you made the discovery, prior to writing Emancipation Day, that your great-grandfather was actually an African American?
My father.
Your father as well.
And therefore me. The story in our family was that that we were Irish, that the Grady family came over from Ireland at some point and went to Windsor. And but my father always said that there are no records. We don't know where in Ireland we're from. So I thought, as a surprise for him for his 70th birthday, I would find out where in Ireland we came from and take him there for his 70th birthday. So I went to Windsor and I started looking up the census reports and various marriage licenses and things. And to my surprise, I found out that we didn't come from Ireland, we came from Virginia. And that my father was African Canadian and had been passing for white.
And that also informs your latest novel, Up from Freedom, in a way.
Well, I started doing research and looking back into the family and tracing them back to Virginia. One of my family members that I uncovered was a woman named Thomasina Grady, who turns up in this novel as Tamsy, who arrived in Indiana in 1835 and stayed there with her family until after the Civil War. I bring the character Tamsy in the novel, I have her running away from slavery in the South and arriving in Indiana sort of in the about 1835, 1840, and it's based on her. I mean, that much is based on her. I really knew nothing about her. There are no records. There's no, slaves weren't. There were not a lot of paperwork done on slaves in those days, so I had to make up a lot. Again, this time I knew it was going to be fiction right away.
The October installment of the Grimsby Author Series features Eden Robinson and Joanna Goodman. The fall series is completely sold out. Tickets for the spring series will soon be on sale. Visit the Grimsby Public Library or their website for information. Reporting for The Source, I'm Mike Balsam.